Would you like to discover powerful ways to drive change in your organization? Would you like to learn about the latest concepts in people strategy, HR effectiveness, and optimization that will help your organization achieve a competitive advantage in your industry? Then HRBP MBA Masterclass with Ron Thomas is for you. With today's uncertain business landscape, HR leaders now play a pivotal role in what some say is a paradigm shift in the industry. This comprehensive 3-day program, in-person or virtual, will empower you to embrace a more strategic mindset, enhance your decision-making skills, and help your organization to the next level. To register as a group or individual, email us at info@strategyfocusgroup.com or visit our website at www.strategyfocusgroup.com.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, you know it's the CEO series, where we bring together entrepreneurs, innovators, disruptors from across the globe and have interesting conversations. Our guest today is Senior Shimhanda, who's a doctoral candidate in space propulsion. And he's going to talk about his career to working on that PhD program in propulsion engineering. So with that, I want to welcome you, my friend. How are you?
Thanks for the great introduction, Mr. Thomas. I'm excited to be here, and I'm very good. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again. You have an amazing career, and we were just talking before we went live. And I'm just impressed at how someone can be in a PhD program and starting from your country in Africa, Namibia, I think it's correct. And now you're in Tokyo and you're studying for that PhD program. So walk us through your journey from your country to Tokyo. Give us kind of the highlights of that.
Okay. I was born in the forests of Namibia, northern Namibia. I spent my whole my early life. I was a village kid. I went to primary school there and high school there. And in 2010, I completed high school. I went to the capital city in Windhoek, and I enrolled in a program for electrical engineering.
Okay.
I studied for around 4.5 years, and then I graduated in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And then after I graduated, it was a bad year. 2016 was bad economically. I think it was the year that the Namibian economy was brought to its knees. So there were no jobs, basically. So we went for some job hunting. We couldn't get jobs. But in my final year, I developed a good friendship with one of the professors at the university. And she offered me like a little position as a teaching assistant or research assistant. And but then unfortunately, even the funding for that project, it was canceled. So I had to find a way out, and I started looking for opportunities everywhere on the internet, everywhere. And I found an advert about development in Africa with radio astronomy. So I joined that program. Because, of course, astronomy is interesting. It's about stars, galaxies, and all that. So I was accepted. And then, I completed the training, basically. And when you complete the training, they offer you a scholarship to go to the UK to do your master's or your PhD. I was one of the students who were offered the scholarship. But at the same time, I was also talking to people in Japan who were building satellites. And I'm more excited about engineering, the hardware. So I picked Japan. I came to Japan in 2017, and I think that's the beginning of my journey in space, basically.
Wow. Wow. So when you talk about your background growing, you mentioned earlier you grew up in a town and you didn't really have electricity. How do you expand the thinking to way beyond what you're visioning? Because you're here and we don't even have electricity, but meanwhile you're thinking about electrical engineering, space propulsion. What guided that? Was it anything that guided that level of thinking? Because that's a huge leap.
Yeah, I mean, up to now, we still don't have electricity, and we have accepted, it's, but, it's, I think it's just about my parents, both of my parents were teachers,
Okay.
and they really expected a lot from me.
Yeah.
And I was the firstborn, so they really, really
Mm.
I think, pushed me hard. When I look at my younger siblings, I get a little bit jealous sometimes because they are getting away with things that I could never get away with. So, yeah, my parents demonstrated,
Mm.
I think, a lot of things that I later applied in my life.
Wow.
So, but I didn't plan anything. I was just trying to get out of the village and go to a better place.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more convenient.
Wow. So two important factors you mentioned was the teacher who gave you the teaching assistance opportunity, which expanded your level of thinking outside of that. And then you had parents who were grounded, firstborn, and you had to live up to it. And the bar was raised a little bit as a result of that. So do you think that was kind of the footing to begin thinking beyond my means? And I don't know how I'm going to figure this out, but I know I want to go do this. And now you're in Tokyo now, right? Is that correct?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, in the initial phase of my life, of course, my parents were my role models. I think in 1999 or 2000, my father graduated and he took me to his graduation, and he graduated top of his class.
Whoa.
So as a kid, I already knew that you are not just going to school to make up the numbers. You have to work hard.
Can't be average. Can't be average.
Exactly. So that experience just made me very competitive.
Mm.
I just wanted to become my father, and my father only rewarded me when I worked hard.
Okay.
If I passed with good grades, he would give me the gifts that I want and all that.
Okay.
So you are sort of seeking for validation, and it just
Bubble
takes you to, And I think another factor is that you go to high school, you meet other hardworking kids, you go to university, you just start meeting people who are making you more competitive, and that just shapes you.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how did space come about? I mean, you got a degree electrical engineering.
Right.
How does space come about? Because with electrical engineering, you could have probably gone off into different job families as a result of that.
Right. Yeah. Great question.
Yeah. Where was space in that?
Great question. So, in my third year, we had a course called radio engineering.
Mm.
It was taught by Dr. Smita Francis, and she's actually the person who introduced me to space. So basically the course was about how radio communication, how just how the operating principle of a radio, how do these things work. And one of the topics was satellite communications, and I did well in that course. I did very well, and I think she was very proud of my efforts, and she just started sharing information about space with me. Like, okay, people are building small satellites, people are doing this. Gradually, she just started pointing me in that direction. And I remember my final year project, she facilitated so that I could work with researchers from the South African National Space Agency. So my final year research was about space. It was about the GPS and other kinds of things, you know.
Yeah.
So, and after that, I enjoyed the process. So I think, you know, things become addictive and interesting, and I just wanted to keep it going.
Yeah.
I just wanted to keep it going.
That's amazing. You've had interesting people that connected you to things,
Right.
you know, from your parents to, you know, the research fellowship that you worked with, that young lady that exposed you to that. As I hear your story, there were interesting people at each section who kind of propelled that. How do you pay that forward? What are you doing from your side to maybe talking to that kid who really hasn't found out where they want to go, or that person that is in their career that's not really being fulfilled? Can you give us some insights as to how you're taking what you learned and how your successes, and you're paying it forward to another group?
Right. So when people give me an opportunity, I take it.
Okay.
I don't take it for granted. So yeah, whenever somebody gives me an opportunity, I make sure to work hard. And that's how you get the next recommendation letter, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Because I'm always a big believer of, you have to always reach back and pull somebody forward. Always.
Right.
Give time, even if it's just a conversation. Someone reaches out to you online and they ask a question. I know so many people will just delete it and will not even, but I'm thinking, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because you could be the spark. Because I think of the teacher who hired you as a research assistant. From your conversation, that was probably the second spark, because the first spark was your parents.
Right.
You know, in doing that. And this is why it's important. Do you kind of feel the same way, that it's important for once we reach a level, we have to go back and bring people along?
Yeah, you have to give back. You have to give back. I think it happens to everybody. Once you reach a certain stage in your life,
Yeah.
you look back and you realize that you look at the people who helped you and you feel indebted. And the best way to, I think, to pay back their their assistance, I think, is to help other young people come up, you know.
Yeah.
So definitely, I
Mm.
think that's the ultimate goal.
Mm.
Yes,
So I want to go back to your country, Namibia.
right.
You're probably the first PhD candidate in propulsion engineering from your country, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Has there been any recognition to say, here's one of ours that's here in Tokyo and doing these cool things?
Right. I think the dominant feeling is gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The dominant gratitude is, the dominant feeling is really gratitude to there are so many people who made this happen. You know,
Okay.
it's like a movie. We only see the main actors, but we don't see the directors behind the scene. You know, and I want to thank all the people who.
Yeah.
You know, I stood on the shoulders of so many people, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I love you saying that, because you see the finished product.
Right.
And life is like that. You see the finished product. You see someone who's here. And we interview people on the CEO series, you see people that have achieved great heights. But as they tell the stories, they talk about the hardships. They talked about the challenges they faced. And it's a good story to talk about how I'm here, but here's what I went through. So that backstory of the movie is exactly what you're talking about. And this is why it's important. And one of the key factors of the CEO series is to bring about people who, what we see here looks cool, but let's get behind the curtain and talk about what's behind the curtain.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the nature of success. We don't see the full picture.
Don't see it. Don't see it. So,
And that's why it's hard to just duplicate what another person did to succeed.
mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, you can when you look at somebody maybe on social media, of course, they only mention that, okay, I got admitted here, I got a job here, but they won't tell you that, okay, I was recommended by who, or I I asked for somebody to recommend me and they turned me down.
Mm.
Those things never get mentioned.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to, as a young person who wants to succeed, you need the skill set to reach the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought in that angle from social media, because social media in a lot of cases to me can be poisoning, because it shows the movie with the good
Right.
with the good ending. But
Right.
it doesn't show, like I said, it doesn't show the sleepless nights and you staring at the ceiling trying to figure out what's next.
You know.
Because that's kind of hidden and people see that, and maybe if I'm struggling, I feel bad because I see someone else doing things. That's just my version of that. So
You know.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because the challenges of someone see you as a PhD candidate, propulsion engineering, they have no clue as to what the backstory is about.
Ah. And you can't tell the story until you can't tell the full story until a lot of things are completed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why people don't write uh, autobiographies until maybe they retire, because a lot of information is just, yeah, it's, but in fact, that process of finding a PhD is tough.
Ah,
It's
I had to. I had.
it's
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you. Go ahead.
the rejections. You get rejected. The first PhD you apply to won't be a success, and you reach a point where you're like, if this doesn't work out, I'm done. But
Uh,
perseverance is really important. When you want something, you just can't give up. You just can't give up. You have to keep going, and you have to remain optimistic. I think optimism is really important, especially in the current economic climate that we are in. A lot of things are happening. People are losing jobs. Today you could be employed. Tomorrow you are back on the streets.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you need a very optimistic attitude. I think, to overcome these barriers. And yeah, before I applied for my PhD, a lot of people were telling me that actually, if you get your master's degree from Japan, it will be very easy to get a PhD. And I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finally got in the process of applying for, it was very difficult because, COVID, a lot of people who were working, they lost their jobs. So they also started applying for PhDs, especially those with masters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I've seen a lot of data, like a university saying that we have never seen so many competitive applications like this.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really competitive.
One of the you mentioned rejections, so I want to give you a little story of mine. And this was back during the days you apply, you go interview for a job, and you really, really want the job, and then you get the letter in the email. So that goes to tell you how far back that was. It wasn't around the internet. The internet was just beginning, but the rejections came through the mail. I kept a folder of every rejection for every big job I'd applied for, and I was rejected. And when I got into those moments, I'd go back and read the rejections, and all of a sudden it fueled me. That was the fuel. Said, I will show each one of you that maybe you made the mistake. And that was my way of trying to stay focused, because I fueled rejections. I took rejections and I would read through them sometimes. And even as I started moving more of a global perspective and kind of the global successes, some of those people that I interviewed reached out to me and said, "Oh my God, I'd love to do what you're doing."
Wow.
And I'm like, cool. Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
It always happens. So a quick question for you. How do you deal with rejection?
I use it as, I take it and I use it as fuel. You reject me, fine. But I'm still going to continue on, and I'm still going to reference that. And my key point of rejection is, I will show you.
I see.
Just keep watching. I will show you. So in those moments, I go back to rejections. I go back to emails of people that I've reached out to that basically just, but once you get to, and you'll find this, once you get to that PhD level, a lot of those people who could have been instrumental in those rejections will reach out to you. Yeah. And it comes, "Oh my God, we're so excited. Thank you." Well, applauding. Yeah, right. But I remember 6 months ago, you wouldn't even give me a meeting.
It's life, you know. And I think it's one of the things that I had to learn the hard way, is that when people reject you and then later maybe you get new results, you know, don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
You know, don't be bitter about it, you know. You can still work with people who rejected you previously.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember somebody who refused to write me a recommendation letter.
Ooh.
I can't mention, but you know, after I got over this process, you know, we got in touch. The person reached out to me, and we started talking. Yeah, and the person actually told me that he or she explained why he or she rejected me. And of course, I got to understand where the person was coming from. Okay. It's like, yeah, I wanted you to continue with your studies, and I saw you back in Namibia or something, and I felt disappointed because I wanted you to do, you know, this and that. I wanted you to get a PhD, and I saw you. I thought you neglected our long-term goal, you know. So the conversation went from, okay, I don't think I can give you the letter, to, okay, you have proved yourself. Mm-hmm. You've proved yourself, and yeah, I wish you the best. And it was great for me to hear from this person, of course, because when I got rejected, when I didn't get that letter, it was really painful, because I lost an opportunity because of that.
Yeah.
I lost an opportunity because of that, and I was really emotional about it.
Yeah.
After everything is done, you look back and you're like, if I got that letter, I wouldn't be at the University of Tokyo. I would have gone elsewhere. So sometimes people reject you because of destiny, or I don't know how to put it, but you know.
I say it was a blessing in disguise, because in life, and this is what, when I talk to younger people, and I teach at 2 universities in the MBA program, and I said, things happen in life, you can't quite figure it out, but you know, when you look at the whole scheme of things and you look back on that, it could have been a blessing in disguise. And that's basically what you're saying. You're saying, yeah.
Steve Jobs, I think, used to say, the dots will connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to keep pushing on in some way. So let's go back to this PhD program, because I'm always impressed by smart people who can even get into a program. I mean, if I put in my application this afternoon, probably within a second it would be rejected, because there's no way. So when I think about space propulsion, and then at PhD level, what does the course load look like? What are some courses that you're taking in that particular program?
Oh, goodness, it's very intense. I have never experienced this level of, the intensity is just at another level.
I can only imagine.
And when you're applying for a PhD, I think it's not just a PhD. It's like maybe you want to have a startup. You don't really have that experience yet. So of course you imagine it's this difficult, you experience this and that. But then once you experience it, you realize you underestimated it.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm not, it's like I'm really excited about this. You need something that will keep you on your toes. You need, you have to read a journal paper every day.
Oh.
You can't switch off. Space is a competitive field, and everybody wants to be the first to publish about this, so that just motivates you. Like, I want to beat the competition at this. I want to beat them at this.
Yeah.
So it's really intense, but yeah, I'm coping. I think I'm 2 months into the PhD, and I'm still, of course, still in the initial phase, and I'm still adjusting.
Okay.
I think PhD starts after 1 year. The first year you're just adapting. You're just becoming familiar with with the team, with the facilities, with everything. And then after that, after you know how to use the equipment, you know how to, you understand how your team operates. That's when you start really doing your PhD.
So how long is the program?
It's 3 years. 3 years.
Oh, 3 years. So you're just scratching the surface. You have not really gotten. So let me go back to, you said that reading a research paper every day, and that's not like reading a news article in a newspaper. That's not like 1,200 words, 1,500 words. This is deep stuff.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge because those papers are, let me just say, papers like on plasma physics, because we plasma, we have a gas, we have liquid, we have solid, and we have the fourth state of matter, which is plasma, and that's what we are really dealing with. So when you read papers about plasma physics, plasma propulsion, those papers are not they're not written for
they're not written for me.
So some of them, sometimes it's fast. I mean, sometimes you can read a paper in 1 hour, depending on your level of understanding. But some papers can take a day because you are just stuck. You just can't, because the author has skipped a lot of stages, maybe in deriving an equation, and then you're just looking at the final product. And you're like, how do I figure this out? So you have to leave the paper and go read more and come back to it again. And it's time consuming.
I can only imagine reading that level. And then after you read these papers, when you get into your coursework or that class, that paper is discussed. In other words, that's the case study for today. Is that the way the model works?
Well, it's, you are actually reading for yourself. It's not, most of the time it's not for, it's your PhD, at the end of the day, it's your PhD. And the more you know, the better. So some people, of course, people have different approaches. Some people, maybe they have already done the literature review during their masters, so they don't even have to read a lot of papers. They already have everything figured out. But some of us, we have to really put in the work and just to be on the level that when you speak to your team members, they don't have to explain the basics to you.
Oh, okay.
You know, in order for the team to be efficient, you need to know the basics. You know, you don't want to be in a meeting discussing very important things, and your colleagues have to explain the most basic things to you.
Yeah.
So to avoid that, you have to read more and read more and read more, and until you are on the same level with your colleagues or with your team.
You know what I thought about as you were talking through that? Because if you read it and you go to your group and your group is having this level of discussion, how, and I'm going to go to a concept called imposter syndrome.
Right.
And for a PhD program in propulsion engineering, everybody in that room is qualified. Everyone in that room is super, super smart.
God.
How do you deal with that competitiveness or people? Wow, that's got to be.
You know, I don't have to deal with it. It's you know, it's you. I mean, in fact, I'm excited to be around people who are really better than me, and I have to strive to reach their level.
Okay.
You know, and you need to be very honest.
Okay.
If you pretend like you understand something that you don't, you know, eventually it will catch up with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I actually, of course, people are very friendly. They understand where you're coming from, so they are willing to help you. You know, but you don't want to. You want efficiency, so you also have to make an effort. You know, you have to make an effort so that the team can really, you know, function on a higher level. You know, it's about time. It's about time, and yeah, I'm not sure if I have really answered your question.
No. You did because in corporate, and you find leaders that reach a certain level, a lot of them feel or suffer from imposter syndrome. They feel that maybe the other people are smarter. Maybe if I'm managing that team, I feel that there's more smart people, and they can't come to that. You have to have an equilibrium. That you know, you feel comfortable around smart people because you want to aspire to that and all those kinds of things. But in leaders, sometimes they struggle with that. That's a huge issue. They struggle with that. And so when you struggle with that, in a lot of cases, you may take that inside of a project, and you always want to be the smartest person in the room. And
I get it now.
Yeah, you get it now. So a lot of times you want to be the smartest person in the room, and maybe your team members realize that you're not the smartest person in the room. So with honesty, that we're trying to collaborate and figure this out together, I think that's a cool approach. And I think that's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I won't advise anyone to do that. It's disastrous, you know. I think, you know, you want your colleagues to understand you better, you know. And if you're pretending you know things that you really don't understand, you know, they'll assume that you are that good, and then when you're in trouble, who will help you, you know? So you want to really, you know, I came here to learn. I didn't come here. I came here to learn from you guys. I'm not here to compete with you guys. I mean, I'm coming from Namibia.
Okay.
I mean, and
you come from Namibia with no electricity.
Exactly. You know, my village, we don't even have electricity. So why should I be trying to prove that I'm the smartest person in the room? I mean, you can't succeed in that way. I mean, it's a sure way to fail.
Yeah, it is a sure way to fail. So thank you for bringing that up, you know, because I follow you on social media, and could you give us your social media handles if people want to follow that? Can you give us your say Facebook or Instagram, if you feel comfortable doing that? Because I think you have an interesting career. You have interesting posts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a Facebook account and a LinkedIn account. I don't use Instagram. I mean, it's really difficult to manage all these accounts, and
I know.
yeah,
Trust me, I know.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
But I see some of your posts, and I see you're out with the team,
right,
students, and you folks are having fun together, and
right.
it's cool because when you look at the complexity of the team, you're the odd person out of the team, and you're very comfortable in that.
Yeah.
That takes another level of being compatible.
It's a skill set.
Yeah.
It's a skill set. I mean, you have to understand, the people around you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they say just not really going with the flow, but it just they call it, I think, team dynamics. You just have to understand how to be part of a team.
Yeah.
And I think I understand my role.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand my role, and it makes things easy for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's have fun. If we are singing, let's sing. And I think
I like that metaphor. Yeah, cool.
I think what really makes my life easy in Japan is that I don't have restrictions. Like, I don't have. There are people who have, maybe they cannot drink, or they can't eat pork, or they can't do this.
Yeah.
And of course, I come from a Christian family, but I don't really have restrictions. So if we are going to drink, I can drink. If we are eating, I eat whatever is in front of me. Because when you are in another country, you have to appreciate the culture. You have to, So when you don't do that, people feel like you're rejecting their customs and their cultures.
Yeah.
So
that's an important lesson for Americans to learn, but that's a whole nother subject. We'll talk about that on another time. So yeah, so over the course of your career, what is the most important leadership lesson that you've learned?
Leadership is not easy. It's not for everyone. You need social intelligence, you need emotional stability, and it's not about you, it's about your followers.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you watch the World Cup?
Sporadically, because I'm in the Middle East back and forth, so I've been watching it through the news because I'm always busy. Yeah. Okay,
I'm a football fan, and of course, I don't really watch the games, but I watch the highlights. And there's an interesting thing going on about Cristiano Ronaldo, and I'm bringing this up because he is a leader.
Yeah,
a lot of people look up to him, but I think he has reached. He's now 39 years old or 38, and I think coaches need to manage him, but he can't accept it.
Yeah.
And I think it's affecting his teammates. They score goals, he doesn't want to celebrate with them. And I think it's a big leadership lesson. Put your personal glory, whatever personal goals aside, and support the team. It's not all about you. And I think that's what leadership is all about.
Yeah.
We all want to take all the glories, but
and we don't on the other side. So what you talked about that earlier when you said emotional intelligence, being a leader, being aware of the effects you're having on your team members. And all that could fall into the same category, because maybe the emotional awareness it's called EQ.
Right.
IQ, we got EQ. EQ is sensing what's happening around me. And I've seen the highlights on him, and it seems to be disgruntled and all these kinds of things. And sometimes it's good to just step back and say, is it me? Or maybe it is me versus me always pointing fingers. Leadership lesson. Exactly. And that's a good point. And thank you for bringing that up. So you talk about the importance influences in your life that you talked about your parents' grounding force. A lot of people may not have had that grounding force. You talked about that leader who gave you the opportunity to move forward. You talked about the rejection of the lady who says, nah. Well, I say the person who says, I can't write you this letter of recommendation.
Right.
Were those influences as to where you are today? Did you kind of bottle all that up into kind of a pill, so to speak, and said, I'm going to here, here's my destination, and I'm going to go here. I've seen some other things here, and I'm going to use that as fuel. Is that your fuel?
Yeah, it's definitely why past failures have motivated me. Some of them really motivate me, but I think what really influenced me also, I think, it's not popular right now to talk about Elon Musk, but yeah, this dude, this guy, I think when he arrived on the scene, I was still an undergraduate student, and it was really fascinating to see somebody who's doing solar, space, and electric vehicles. And, and I think that's actually what shaped my career. It motivated me it got me excited about space.
Okay.
And then now I'm in energy, energy and space. I think this all comes from Elon for sure.
Okay.
And he came from South Africa. We are neighbors, so of course I read his book and I took a lot of lessons from there. But at the end of the day, Elon is Elon.
Yeah. So
right.
I'll say this: I'm not a fan at all. But that's a whole nother story. But mine comes from a leadership perspective of leading an organization. And when I look at the Twitter fiasco, when I look at the pronouncements of you either work 40 hours inside the office or you don't offer flexibility, that's kind of totally alien to what I preach every day. So cool. That's cool. We're still cool as a result of that. So what would you like to tell our guests as an inspirational kind of from Namibia? No electricity.
Right.
Now, being at one of the top propulsion engineering schools in the world, that's a hell of a trajectory. That's a hell of a story. So I'm waiting for a senior's book. I'm waiting for that. Well, that's a hell of a story, man. Forget Elon Musk. You've got a story to tell. Because that anchor, think of that. Just think of this. No electricity growing up, which means your vision of the future could have been limited somewhat. And now you're in the top school for propulsion engineering. That's a hell of a story.
For sure. Well, I guess it's just about finding what you love.
Yeah.
And doing that, I think. I love electric propulsion, and when things are really hard, when the winters are really cold and you're struggling to get out of bed, I think it will depend on whether you love your research or not. And if you love your research, you'll find the courage to wake up. You'll find the strength to wake up.
Yeah.
And I think somebody once said, I think Joseph Campbell once said, follow your heart and the universe will open doors for you where there's only walls. And I think that's the quote that really inspired me the most.
Okay, cool. That is so cool. So I work for the concept, and I believe in everything you just said, that Monday morning approach. How do I feel on Sunday evening about Monday? And that's when you can kind of come back and take an audit. Because if I'm looking forward to Monday, and I'm looking forward to the challenges I've got to face, I'm cool.
Right.
But if I'm dreading, and when I wake up on Sunday morning and I'm dreading Monday, it's time to do a gut check because something's not right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So apparently you figured that out. So thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. We're coming up on the end now. And I know, what time is it there now in Tokyo?
It's 44 past 21.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you making the time for this. And thank you so much. And we'll be in touch offline. So thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you on the CEO series.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, man. Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.